September 1st, 1939. Warsaw, Poland. The morning rush had barely begun when the first German bombs fell. In those final moments of normal life, something stood out on the streets. Bright red municipal buses, still running, still carrying civilians trying to escape the growing fear in the air. World War II is usually remembered through tanks, fighters, submarines, and generals. But behind the front lines, something far more ordinary, buses, quietly shaped the daily struggle for survival. Across Europe, buses suddenly became more than transportation. They became ambulances, troop carriers, mobile command posts, and sometimes the only escape from a burning city. In London, the iconic AEC Regent RT double-decker tried to keep the city moving as air raid sirens wailed over rooftops. Conductors tore off ticket machines and replaced them with sandbags. Drivers learned to navigate through blackout conditions so dark that even headlights were forbidden. You can almost imagine the sound: the rattle of the diesel engine, the thump of boots as people hurried aboard, the distant hum of German bombers crossing the channel. These buses were no longer part of everyday life. They were part of the war machine. And in those early months, nobody understood how important they would become, until the first cities began to fall. As Europe collapsed city by city, buses were forced into roles no designer had ever imagined. In France, 1940, as German tanks broke through the Ardennes, Parisian Renault buses were used to evacuate entire neighborhoods. Women, children, and elderly people packed into vehicles designed for half their number. Drivers ignored traffic rules, road signs, even directions. The only goal was away from the front. Some buses carried refugees, others carried wounded soldiers, and some carried messages or secret orders, hidden beneath seats or behind loose panels. Because buses could go places radios couldn't in London, during the Blitz, buses doubled as moving shelters. When bombs devastated entire streets, drivers transported rescue crews, fire brigades, and medics through smoking ruins. Many buses were camouflaged with dark paint to make them harder to spot from above. Some routes were changed daily because yesterday's roads no longer existed, and then came the most unexpected use: mobile anti-aircraft units. In several cities across Britain and the Soviet Union, bus chassis were stripped down and mounted with AA guns, creating improvised defense vehicles against enemy aircraft. They were slow, awkward, and vulnerable, but they were better than nothing. Even in the harsh Eastern Front, improvised Soviet bus ambulances fought through snow and artillery fire to retrieve wounded soldiers before they froze to death. Their engines would choke in the cold. Tires would burst, but the drivers kept going. The deeper the war went, the clearer it became. Buses were not background machines. They were lifelines. And soon, they would become something even more critical: tools of resistance and defiance. As the war tightened its grip on occupied Europe, buses became more than transportation. They became weapons of quiet rebellion. In Warsaw, under Nazi occupation, Polish drivers used city buses to smuggle resistance fighters across checkpoints. They hid guns in tool compartments, coded messages under ticket machines, and forged travel papers to slip Jews and political prisoners out of danger. Drivers were searched. Their buses were inspected, but many still risked execution to move one more life to safety. Some even modified the vehicles themselves. They loosened panels, rewired doors, and created hidden cavities behind engine housings. All makeshift escape spaces large enough for a terrified passenger to crouch unseen as German patrols stepped on board. In Denmark, bus drivers played a key role in the rescue of over 7,000 Jews. During night operations, headlights were blacked out, engines muffled, and buses moved in complete darkness to deliver families to covert boats bound for Sweden. One mistake meant discovery. One delay meant death. But the buses rolled on. Meanwhile, in the Soviet Union, buses were used to transport partisans deep into forests. Some drove straight through artillery fire to deliver mines, rifles, or fuel to sabotage groups. Their bodies were riddled with shrapnel. Windows shattered. But if the engine worked, the mission continued. And then came the moment that shocked German officers. when buses fought back. In 1944, during the Paris uprising, buses were overturned to form barricades. Mechanics welded metal sheets onto their sides, turning them into improvised armoured shields for resistance fighters, exchanging gunfire with German troops in the streets. A symbol of the everyday worker had transformed into a fortress of revolution. These were not acts found in military manuals. These were not decisions made by generals. They were choices made by ordinary drivers. The people who woke up every morning and turned a bus key, never knowing if they would return home. By the final months of World War II, one truth was undeniable. A bus could save a city. A bus could save a life. A bus could save a nation.